Hey everyone, it's me, Stephanie Nietzsche, and welcome to today's episode of Writer Talk. And my guest is author Thomas Kane. How are you, Thomas?
I'm okay.
Good. I love that we get to have these chats. I think like once a year, you're publishing a book, right?
Yeah, that it's working out about like that.
Yeah. And so we get to catch up and I get to hear about everything that's new. So now you just released a new book and we talked about it in our last chat too. And it sounded really interesting and there was just so much going on. So tell us about that book. Tell us the title and let us know that story, what's going on in there.
Oh, thank you. The title of the book is Palace Without Windows. I don't know how well you can see it here. This
Yeah,
is
pretty.
a proof copy, so it has an ugly gray line on it. If anyone out there buys a copy of your own, you will not have this line. Um, the title is Palace Without Windows, and it is book one in a series titled Sleep of Reason.
Oh
And
wow.
the story kicks off with a young man named Skip, and Skip uh, struggled in school. He was things did not look that great for him for a while, but he you know figured some things out and got an opportunity to talk to a famous professor of astronomy, and and made a good impression. The professor saw something in him, and he got an opportunity to go to a fairly prestigious university and work with this professor and study science. And this is set in a fantasy world where advanced science means figuring out that the Earth goes around the sun. To give you a sense of the technological level we're talking about. In fact, this professor was was the was the scholar who clinched the argument that that the Earth went around the sun.
Oh,
This is the Galileo of his world. Um, and the story and when Skip finally gets in the university and is working with his mentor, he makes friends. He sort of forms a tight circle with the professor's other students, and he sort of gets plans for his life, and things are coming together for him. And then things take a turn when his professor dies, and a new professor comes in with a very different outlook on everything. And this is a big change no matter what, and it's an even bigger change because in the world that Skips lives in, the final stage of getting their equivalent of a PhD. It's called an SD degree for savant doctor.
oh,
The final stage of that is to descend into a cave where there you people. I mean, the scholars at this time don't fully understand what happens in the cave, but people that go in have a mystical experience, sort of, and in this experience, they you know go on adventures, sort of a dreamlike psychedelic um, uh, adventure quest,
oh wow.
etc. And in the process, they you know if things go well, if they go into the cave properly steeped in their studies, they have an epiphany, and ideas that they've been working on that they haven't quite brought together yet um, take form in their mind, and they come out with a deeper insight into what they're studying. But
Wow.
it's dangerous, and
Oh,
the and it's dangerous, and it's also somewhat there's an element of the unknown because, as I say, the scholars themselves don't know why this happens in the caves. Well, what Skip finds out just as he is, getting to the end of his studies and getting ready to start his career, is that this new professor has changed this test, and so now he's been building up to taking the test and becoming a professor himself, and now he has to deal with the possibility of a new test, and with the fact that the new professor is messing with things that presumably are not understood. and that is where we launch Skip into the story, and that is what Palace Without Windows is about.
So now you say it's a big change for the character. Now, is this also a big change for you as an author compared to other stories that you've written? Or would you say it's about the same? How would you compare the genres of books you've written in the past?
Great question. I mean, it's still fantasy. It's still set in the same world. Anyone who has not watched me before, I'm the author. I'm also the author of a fantasy series called Barra of the League, and
Yes.
a follow-up book called The People versus Abigail Bennett. And the Sleep of Reason series, Palace Without Windows, is set in the same world. So there is continuity there, and in fact, they're totally different characters. But it's the same world, and occasionally you will have, if you have read my earlier series, you will recognize some of the names.
So now was that something that came to you while you were writing the other series and you said to yourself, you know what? I have these other characters, I have this other story, I want to write it, or how did this one come about? Was it totally separate in your mind, even though the characters are in other stories?
That's a good question because both Barra of the League and this one have been brewing a long time.
Yeah.
The I would say to I would say that sort of the impetus for this one is my own life as an academic. I mean, most of
Ah,
the things that happen here are things that can happen in real life. Aside from like the magical test underground, there is there are a lot of real life issues come up in here, and I stress the word issues because I don't mean the characters are completely fictitious. The characters are fictitious, and to the extent that the issues in here to the extent that the issues here are real, it's not that that particular thing happened. It's that particular thing happens all the time, in
right.
everywhere.
It's
Um,
fantasy, but you're
yeah,
drawing from real life and situations that actually have happened or can happen. I'm sure they happen somewhere, but now it just has a fantasy spin on it.
yeah. Like for instance, what I mean by that is, I think I mean, unfortunately, I mean, as I think the professors that I have like known and worked with, try to are conscious of this, but they're a, a PhD program in real life takes a long time, and there will be administrative changes over the course of that time, and you don't always end up working with the person you started with,
Mm,
and even without the test, that be a very significant change for a student, and this is and so I guess what I'm saying is I think people that maybe are themselves academics or in graduate school or thinking about it, um, will find some of these experiences familiar.
oh,
And
yes.
looping back to a question you asked a few minutes ago about whether this was a change of genre, there's the continuity with the earlier series, but there's there's there is a change of genre. Um, this series is dark academia,
Mm,
and the Mara of the League series was you know political intrigue, and by the end of it, warfare. It's military fantasy.
right, right. So how long have you been working on this new book? When did that concept, that idea, when did you have that in
I
your
wrote I wrote it and almost published it in the 1990s. So about 30,
really?
and then I I mean, it was accepted by a traditional publisher, but then as these things go, I mean, there essentially was no self-publishing. Essentially, didn't exist then. Um,
Yes. You know what?
uh,
I do remember we spoke about this. It's so interesting. Yeah, look at that. So this book has been, for a while, something that you wanted to share with readers and just never had a chance to until now?
yes, I completely rewrote it. since then. So it's gone through a lot of changing.
Right.
In the 1990s version, Palace Without Windows was chapter 1, so it got a little longer.
Oh, I
And
see.
there will be a book 2, which will have the rest of the 1990s story.
So now, did you find it difficult at all to do the rewriting? Was it challenging, or was it something that you really like ran with? You enjoyed it? What was that process?
Oh, I would say I did run with it and enjoy it, and it has hit it has hit challenging phases, along the way. But
Right.
I am you know I am like I am optimistic. I like my own story.
Right. Yeah, I believe me. I read your work, and I bet it's you're a wonderful writer, and I bet the story is amazing. And I'm so interested because we last time when we spoke, the cave. I just found so much. I just don't want you to give too much away about the cave, but when we spoke last time and we discussed the cave, that was what I said to myself, wow, I really have to know what is going on in this cave and what's going to happen. It's so interesting. So now, why did you rewrite the story? Was it to, change the characters a bit or make it a little bit more modern, or what was that change about? Because I'm interested in hearing about that.
the I mean, of course, the real answer is, multiple choice, multiple things. But I would say, the main change from the 1990s version to today's version is that, the story, the Skip is not the only character, and the 1990s were in the 1990s version, Skip in fact was, didn't get a lot of time, didn't get a lot of time, and
Oh,
I still, the other characters are important too.
right.
If we do this again in, next year, or maybe, I mean, not well, I'm hoping maybe a little sooner than next year, but if when book 2 comes out, um, we'll excuse me, talk even more about that. But reasons to change were, to develop Skip's characters more,
Mm,
show more of, Skip's life and how, show what going to university meant for Skip. Show how this is, how he, overcame, some, personal, his personal situation, before, and how he, you know and what his hopes and dreams were going to be. So adding depth to Skip was one reason for the change, and a second reason for the change was to, improve, excuse me, the fantasy elements of it, because we
right.
haven't. I mean, I haven't talked much about them so far, but there's a second. There's a second plot running through this book. At the same time as we follow Skip's story, we're also following a character named Elena. You'll find out in book 2 that that's,
Don't
sort of
don't give anything away.
sort
No spoilers,
of,
Thomas. No
uh,
spoilers.
okay, well, I'm just saying in book 2 she won't always be called Elena, but,
Oh, okay.
the I in any case,
That's
there's a
interesting.
character called Elena, and Elena is, uh, you know also smart, and, also kind of like, but she does not, she does not get the opportunity, to do a university degree, and she ends up as a gardener at the university, um,
Oh,
and, in the in she but what she does do is, she, as I say, she, is has a scientific mind, even though she hasn't gotten to trade it and use it the way other characters have, and she also has a grandmother who was accused of witchcraft, and the more, you know and she's fascinated by what uh, her grandmother's legacy, and as at when she was younger, she, tried to figure out how to do witchcraft herself, and she kind of thinks she might have succeeded. And when the book, however, she also had some disturbing experiences, and she set it aside for a while and was trying to live a normal life. But when the book begins, Elena has had it up to here with a normal life, and Elena is getting back into, it makes the decision that, it doesn't matter if this is dangerous. It doesn't matter if this, could, if people could get hurt. Something has to change, and I'm going to, so I'm going to do this one way or the other. So Elena, commits herself to rediscovering her grandmother's art, which, by the way, people in this world do not generally believe in magic. So it's a similar. I mean, you could compare the level of belief to real life, and people talk about it, people have stories about it, but scholars say it's all superstition. But Elena pursues it. Elena gets some results, and again, here we start getting into spoiler territory. But Elena finds out that she's bitten off a lot more than she planned to chew, and of course, Elena's discovery of magic, which would be, which would, if people found out about this would A, get her in trouble, so she's not telling people, but B, it would completely change everything that established scholars believe. So Elena's secret rediscovery of magic is a second theme in the book, and I mean, I hope it's clear that eventually Elena's story and Skip's story and the other characters' stories are going to meet. Elena is going to learn things that are relevant to the test in the caves. And the test in the caves is going to, they're going to have to, the protagonists, the main characters, are going to have to work together. Nice. And getting back to why did I do the revision? Well, I did the revision to improve Elena's part of the story.
Oh, she needed more, right? I could tell by the way you talk about the characters. I mean, you just bring them to life just discussing them. So I'm sure when we read the book, they are really going to come to life off the page, because you just seem so passionate about this story. I mean, you always seem passionate about all your stories, but this is our latest conversation, and you're really bringing it to life. So I love that. And now, did you always read fantasy as a child? Is this something that has been with you for your entire life?
Yes, basically. And that I mean, I sort of the moment when that came together for me was as a child, was with a wonderful teacher who read The Lord of the Rings aloud to the class, and
look at that.
He was he read it a lot. He did a good job of reading it aloud. If people are familiar with it, you know the Black Riders, the Nazgul. And
I am not. I'm sorry, I'm not. But did he change? Did he use voices and act out? Oh, exactly. Wow. That must, yeah, I could see how that could really interest you in that genre. Teachers make all the difference. They really, really do. And you know what? Talking about that, is that a teacher from the school? We talked about your school very briefly once before. You went to a very interesting school, didn't you?
Yes, he was at that school, and
oh, wow.
Excuse me. The last time we talked, you say that subject came up, and I believe I recall that we said we wanted to say more about it.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to hear more about it. I think it helped shape you, like you're saying, that teacher made such a difference. Yeah, right? It helped shape you as interested in fantasy and now writing about it. And the school itself gave you freedoms. Tell us about that. I want to hear more about that, because I feel I feel a lot of schools should do that. There's untapped talent in students. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I agree with you, obviously. And this is in fact a lot of what this book is about. This is as I say, a big part a big part of Skip's story is that he goes to a school which is ordinary for his world and would, you know, technological and, you know, the, you know, if you moved it into our his normal is not too different from contemporary American normal, um, aside from, like, you know, they you know, write on wax tablets and have a king. But the uh, uh, so in any case, a lot of what I'm doing here is looking at how does he come out of that less free situation and, you know, achieve something that his teachers didn't expect him to achieve, and maybe the and was not making it easy for him to achieve. And so that and if you want to find out how Skip did it, I mean, that's in here. Now I actually I had some of the same experiences as Skip. I went to public school until I was about 10 years old, and had a hard time there. And when I was about 10 years old, I you know, it was as as and as magical as something in a fantasy story. One day my mother just said, you know, what if you didn't go to school together? What if you didn't go to school today? You know, I was like, I was getting ready to go down and go get on the school bus, and she said, no, we're not doing that today. And, you know, I had no idea. It had not occurred to me that there was any alternative to. You know, I thought that was just what everybody had to do. But that day we didn't, and instead we went out to a different school, and and uh, you know, I went there. I had a great day, and my parents were happy with what they saw too, and so I ended up going there. And this is uh, and sort of just to give it, it had what I think it was sort of the best of the 1960s, and almost it was in the 19. I mean, it was the night. I'm not that old. When I went there, it was the late 70s and early 80s. But the philosophy of the school was the best of the 1960s.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, it had. I mean, I won't lie. It had a hippie vibe, and it had, but but in a good way, and it had, it was, and the idea. I mean, there were different teachers over time, and they each one sort of brought a different, you know, structured the day in a different way, brought sort of different ideas to the table. But the sort of basic idea was that, you know, children should have like some autonomy, some say in their own lives. That children's feelings and perspectives, you know, mattered.
Yeah.
And that children should be like that part of education should be, you know, learning to learning to be self-directed, learning to be, you know,
Maybe have your own thoughts and feelings about things, and you don't have to generally agree with the entire class, or even the teacher. You could just, right, as just a person, so you can act as an independent person, thought wise, right, and verbal. You had more freedoms in this school than you did in the public school system, I'm sure, where everything in public school is just so routine, and everybody just follows the same curriculum, the same everything. It doesn't really give you much room to like branch out and do what you might excel in, right?
Yes.
I can right?
Yes.
That's correct, right? Because I went to public school, so I know they're really, and you know, different schools. I'm sure there's public schools that maybe do allow more creativity for their students, but the schools that I went to, we really basically all did the same thing. And if you had a talent for drawing, or if you had a talent for writing, that wasn't, we didn't pursue it. We just had reading time, we had art time, and then the regular whatever math, and we just had like those 15, 20 minutes of each subject, and you can't really enjoy it because just as you're getting into it, you have to stop and now do math. I mean, you know what I mean? It like cuts off the creativity. We're like cut off, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so unfair. I mean, school is to teach us, it's supposed to help us and mold us and shape us. And if you actually love something, doing something, and you can do it for just 15 minutes, it kind of feels like a punishment. But anyway, let's get back to your school because your school sounds really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have summed up like the problems with public school. I mean, I'm with you with what you're saying about how if there is something that a student is has a talent for or is creative at, it's I mean there's no time. You cannot do anything meaningful in a 15-minute block, and then after that you practice for a standardized test. Um, we fill in the little bubbles on the piece of paper.
Yes.
And another thing uh, that caught my ear was you were talking about how when when it's handled that way, even the subject that you in theory might have liked feels like a punishment. You said, and
Right.
that. I mean, you're right,
It's
and
like
that is
dangling the carrot, you know what I mean? Or it's
yes,
like
yes,
you're getting teased by something, and you're getting interested in something, and just as you start to flow, boom, now we're moving on to something else. And maybe it's something else that you don't enjoy. Like I didn't enjoy math. I wasn't good at math. I'm still not good at math. But to go from reading or writing, which I loved, to have to go into math, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, 1 minute we're all excited and happy, and then the next minute we're like, oh, math. But that's only me. I imagine you're very good at math. Are you a good math? Are you good at math, Thomas?
kind of you to say so. I mean, here's the real thing with being math, and this is, I mean, of course, again to tie it to the book, Skip has to learn math.
Ah,
Skip hates math. I mean, Skip can't do math when he's in school, and if he wants to become an astronomer, he's going to have to do a lot of math, and so this is about Skip's transition from completely
hating
just
math and
shuts down at the thought of math to being able to do it. And again, I was pretty awful at math in school. I was going to say that Skip's situation was more dramatic than mine in real life. But I really, in all honesty, I was bad at math in school.
I'm
And
surprised.
of course, I did not become an astronomer. So I never went to the heights of mathematical
Love
knowledge
math.
that my character will have to. But I did. I did do some sort of medium level science classes in college, and
Right.
I thought I planned. I imagined myself going into chemistry before I ended up going into political science, which is a totally different direction. But
Right. Right.
in any case, what I would say is that I think that the way in the math teaching is horrible, and and I got better at math when when I when I had something mathematical to do that you know was but when I knew what I was doing with the math,
Right.
and it made sense to me that it needed to be done in a mathematical way,
Right.
I was able to pick up more of it, and also my university my university chemistry professors were taught me more math in one lecture that was really supposed to be about chemistry than I learned in years
Right.
as a kid.
As a
Um,
student.
but and my university chemistry professors were also better at teaching penmanship than and any teacher I had as a kid. Um,
Oh, look at
uh,
that.
and also another thing, so I guess my message to people, those are sort of my thoughts on the on the theory of teaching math. And I guess another thing another reason why I was able to overcome absolutely hating math in public school is um, is that, as we were talking, I got to leave public school,
Right.
and it was probably I mean again in just to fill in the gaps in my own personal story. After I went from public school to this private school that uh, then I was homeschooled briefly, and then I went to university at 16. And in that homeschooling phase of the process, my parents, my parents taught me math in a relatively structured way, but I learned some then, and
Right. You understand. Yeah,
I
you were
didn't
able
learn
maybe to.
anything in public school.
Yeah, maybe you were able to understand it better because it was taught differently. I mean, because we're all taught, different schools, I guess, or different countries, even different cities, even different boroughs maybe teach it differently. But when you're in the class, they teach it that one way.
Yeah.
And if we can't grasp it that one way, I find it's because then it goes on. It goes on from simple addition to division, right? The math increases, algebra. But if we don't get it the simple way and we keep on following those same steps, we just get lost in the math. But
Yes.
now, getting back to your love of writing, did you always know you were going to write books? Did you, when you were a child, was that a dream of yours to write a book?
Pretty far back. In fact, I mean, I would say to be the simple answer is that the teacher that read the Lord of the Rings, so, discovering the Lord of the Rings, and the rest of Tolkien's work, but that was when that was the crucial moment. It was after that and we're talking age 11. It was after that
Oh, wow.
I definitely knew that this was something I wanted to do. Um, I'm not totally. I mean, I think it might have. I think the idea was there even before that. But that.
Right.
But I can say with clarity that I wanted to be a writer after that.
Were you a reader before that?
Yes.
You were. Would you read fantasy?
I wouldn't. I mean, yes, but it was less. It was. I mean, yes, I did read fantasy, but it was. It was. I wouldn't. I didn't read only fantasy, and I guess what I would say is I probably would not have defined myself. Well, of course, I'm a kid. I wouldn't define myself much of any way at all. But I don't think the fantasy did not come into focus as much until.
Gotcha.
I mean, I will say this: before there was Tolkien in my life, there was Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, and to give credit where credit is due, how good the private school was, and how hard I found it in public school. But it was a public school teacher who introduced me to Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, and
Oh.
and that also had was hugely I loved it, and it's not medieval fantasy, but it does involve talking rats. So
Right, right. But that's another great example of how a teacher can make such a difference in a child's life,
yes,
right? In,
yes,
because that teacher introduced you to that book and it
yes.
really, right? You were interested in it and you were reading it and it probably encouraged you to find other books like that. And how about movies? When you were a kid, would you watch, a certain kind of movie? Is there something you look forward to that was coming on TV, or you really didn't watch TV when you were a kid?
Um, more the latter, and especially we started talking about movies. I don't think I saw a movie until I was a teenager. No, I take that back. Again, at the school we were talking about, we did go and we watched. There's like a specialty theater in I want to say a nearby town, but it's like an hour's drive away. Where I live, that's a nearby town. And it's funny. We went to the Railroad Square Cinema, and we saw like, you know, movies with cultural value to them. But you know,
Mm.
and again, something that gets explored a little bit in here. I was pretty out of touch with popular. I mean, nobody in my world. Well, no, I won't say nobody, but the people that could have taken me to movies didn't. And we did have a TV. We watched. I mean, everything was broadcast then. Didn't have this streaming stuff. And
We were very
which
limited
I
with
know,
the channels.
yeah.
Very limited with the channels, and a lot of shows back then were black and white too.
Well, yeah, we would never have invested in a color TV. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, um, I didn't watch. You know, one thing that again was probably a good parenting decision on my parents' part is that we never had the culture of like plopping the kid in front of the TV and leaving him there for 6 hours. Um,
Right.
so I would watch like one TV show. You know, I mean, I would watch it regularly. I was following the story, but it would only come on once a week, and you know, other days I wouldn't watch at all. And you know, we because we were so natural and disciplined back in that time. Anyway, I mean, I remember I liked Get Smart.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. I watched
yeah,
Get Smart. Yeah.
we
Had the
watched.
shoe phone.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah.
he had the shoe phone and the watch, and now we have all those things today. I mean, we don't have a shoe phone, but we have an actual phone.
You could put a phone in a shoe if you wanted to.
Yeah, yeah. You could.
It's yeah, that technology is commonplace.
Yes, yes. And
Something
back
else.
then it was like, wow, a phone and a shoe and a watch and all those crazy things. What else did you watch? Get Smart and
Well, I was going to say. I mean, the Mayberry RFD was another one.
oh
Um,
yeah.
Something that I just wanted to bring in, is sort of jumping away from TV shows for a minute.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you know, talking about affording black and white TV made me think of it. If anyone watching this is, you know, interested in you know, is interested in sort of the things we've been discussing about education, something that I would like you to know is this school was run by parents, and it did not it did not take a lot of money. Is what I'm getting at. There were the families in the school had pretty much the complete range of incomes from a lot of people who were quite definitely working class to a couple of people who were better off, and we benefited from the well-off families' generosity. So I don't mean to say that we could do this for I don't mean to say that we created the entire experience with no money at all. But what I also want to say is, if anybody is interested in doing it themselves or doing something like it themselves, uh, it's this was something that people of
It's doable.
fairly ordinary means for American people in that time period
Right.
were able to do for themselves.
Yeah. It's doable. It's possible,
Yes,
right?
yes,
It's definitely possible. And it takes a team of people, a group of people, right, that all have to, well, they have to have the time
yeah,
and the knowledge to teach, but it's definitely doable. But it sounds like a very nice place.
yeah.
Sounds a nice place to learn and a nice group of people to be around. That,
It
that's for
right.
sure. And you include stories in your book, right? You said real life stories,
Well, I want to make it clear,
fun
nothing.
that you've spun into fantasy.
Yeah, nothing in the book is directly taken from real life.
Oh, right,
Um,
right.
I
No,
mean,
no,
I mean,
no. Yes,
no,
fiction. It's all fiction. You take that one idea and then you just
yeah.
you just run with it. And but let me ask you this: when you write fantasy, what would you say is one of the most what do you find the most challenging while you're writing a story in that genre? Or do you not have any challenges? Is it just a smooth is it just a smooth sail?
Well, I mean, writing as I mean, you can tell me if you feel the same way. I'm going to say writing absolutely has challenges. I mean, I love writing. When writing is going well, it's a whole lot of fun. But I
But
think
when it's
I cannot imagine writing not having challenges. I mean, would you agree with that? Is that
Oh, yes,
you,
definitely. But I mean, like in the fantasy aspect, like when it comes to writing fantasy, would you find maybe coming up with characters' names challenging or coming up with, because I know in some fantasy novels, it's a whole other world where there's words are created by the author. And then sometimes they're explained, there's a glossary in the back that explains different things in case in case the reader is not maybe familiar with certain things, or if things were made up solely by the author, words and places and stuff like that. So in that respect with fantasy, do you find that challenging, or do you find that actually very easy and enjoyable to just come up with these, come up with these names or places? You know what I mean? Like the cave, for example. Like, did you know when you first started the story that a cave, was going to be part of the learning process, or, the magical part for the students? Did you know that? Or was that something that came along? Or did you actually have to like sit and think about it and say, where could I send these students that would be challenging, but they would come out with a reward if they did it correctly? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you,
I mean, directly answering the last part. Uh, I think the cave was. I had the idea for the cave pretty early. I was looking. I was. I was thinking. I mean, the real life PhD examination process feels feels like a huge challenge when you're going through it. But it was clear to me very early that for a fantasy novel, people were going to want actual life and death stakes,
right.
and and the and the uh, when I say people, I mean readers. We're going to want the character. We're going to watch sort of that level of action and excitement. So, and the idea of the experience in the caves and the quest in the caves, so I had that idea fairly early. So that in particular was not something I struggled with. And I should also say that part of the inspiration for the caves where you have the visions and the mystical quest. Part of that inspiration comes from the Roman oracle. I believe it's Cumai. I may not be. I may. I'll just be. Well, you. I may have that name. I have to like Google that name to make. But anyway, there is in real life there was a cave in you know in Italy on the Italian near the Italian coast where there was a priestess who would have vision. You could ask her questions, and she would go into the caves and have a vision and come back with an answer for you. And the assumption is that there was a volcanic vent in that cave that released gases, and they would induce hallucinations, and that's where the visions came from. And I have
Oh.
visited that cave in real life, um, uh, and um, and did not. The gases are not active anymore, I guess. Um,
Right. Oh,
uh,
that's so interesting that the gases
yeah,
influence those hallucinations.
yeah. And by the way, I
Wow.
I I would I have been there. I actually do know something about this. I may be wrong about the name that I just gave for it, but um I'd have to I'd have to like look it up
Yeah, no, don't, that's okay. Don't worry about it. So now, how far are you into book two?
um it's sort of like a how long is a piece of string question. I mean, in a sense, in a sense, it's written. Um,
Really?
and I
Wow.
am because I wrote it I wrote it a long time ago. Then I rewrote it. You know, in like the last couple of years. But now that I've hit the point where things are getting real. I knew I would have to to rewrite the first chapters, because this was the original first chapter.
Right.
So,
Wow.
but as I've added the first chapters, I write chapter one, and then I realize where I am now. I no longer want to go into chapter two the same way, so I end up rewriting chapter two. And as I try to merge what I have with what I need to add, it's probably going to work its way through the book until I've rewritten the whole thing yet another time. So,
Right. Right.
I mean, I am assuming it will be, I want to say like 3 or 4 months, and in
Yeah.
reality, things tend to take longer than you want them to take. But
They do. It's hard to give a date for a book, especially when it's so early on. And even when you get closer to the end, even then things happen, right? We change things. We change the end, we change the beginning, we change the plot. Sometimes we add a character, take away a character. So anything could change. But that will definitely be our next conversation. Book two.
I hope so.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So now tell us, it was great chatting with you, but I just want everybody again to know the title of your latest release and where we could find it.
It is Palace Without Windows, and it is available on Amazon, and you can find me. I have a website, thomasmkane.com, and I'm active on Facebook and X, and
Yes,
or
you are.
Twitter, as we used to call it. And
Yes.
I would love to connect.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll definitely share those, you know, in the messages in the comments below. And I just want to say what a pleasure, as always, speaking to you and learning about your world. You always have such interesting stuff to say, and I'm obsessed with that cave to find out what is going on in there with those students. So thank you, thank you,
Well, thank you. Honored to be here.
thank you. It was a pleasure to have you, and I look forward to our next chat. And like you said, we could find your book on Amazon. If there's anything else, did you want to add?
That covers it. Thank you.
Okay, and your other books too. We could find all of your books on Amazon,
That's right.
which I do recommend. All right, great. Well, Thomas, it was great to see you. It was great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time and your talent. And we'll talk again when book two is out.
I look forward to it.
Me too. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.